We are so glad you've joined us for Northpointe Conversations. I'm here with Laminda and Denise Ubhayawanshas. I was going to try and say your full name, but there's no way that's happening.
Well, you said Ubhayawanshas with such ease.
Uh-huh.
Like,
Well, I've said it a lot for like
that's
Just
right.
a couple weeks.
how many years?
Oh,
Eight-
maybe
8 years?
Yeah.
No. Has it been 8 years? Yeah, 8 years since we first met.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
Yeah, except sometimes you guys say it a little bit different, right? How do you say it officially?
Well, it's Pahala Rala La
No, not all that. Just your last name.
Ubhayawanshas. You got it right.
Ubhayawanshas.
Mm-hmm.
Because I usually put the accent on the beginning. Ubhayawanshas. Ubhayawanshas. Now I'll try and say that.
Ubhayawanshas.
Ubhayawanshas. But it's really Ubhay, right?
Ubha.
The
Ubha.
B is like a B, like a
Ub. So how is your Sri Lankan? What do you speak?
Sinhalese.
You
Yeah.
You speak Sinhalese.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I've been learning it. Yeah.
And do either of you speak Tamil or no?
I can understand Tamil. Not so much speaking, but I can understand.
Understand
it.
it.
Yeah.
So there are two languages in Sri Lanka. Sinhalese is
Sinhala and Tamil.
and Tamil. Sinhalese is dominant,
Yes.
right? It's more common. And then in the northern part and in rural areas, is that accurate?
Like the north and northeast, and a little bit of like up in what they call hill country.
Yeah.
They're
Tamil
up in Tamil.
people, I mean, it's spread out, little pockets all over, but mainly northern part of Sri Lanka and northeast, and then hill country, like Nuwara.
So like Kentucky, Arkansas, that's the hill country people, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Kentucky. Hill country people.
You're watching. We love you in Kentucky.
We love you, Scotty.
That's right. Just in terms of background, this is a conversation. So Northpointe Conversations, and we're talking about all kinds of stuff, and you just get to be a part of it. What's the history of Tamil and Sinhalese people as compared to India? Do they have roots in India?
Yeah.
Yeah, from down south, where Tamil Nadu is all the way down in India. They migrated to Sri Lanka many, many years ago. And
Because how far is the island? How far is Sri Lanka from the
sea
tip of
miles.
India?
Yeah, sea miles about 36 sea miles.
36 sea miles.
They say though, I don't remember if they have like a number estimation of when, but some time ago that it used to be connected, because the small area that connects them, it's very shallow in the water. So they think that at some point a storm had kind of washed the trail away, but that you could have gone by foot
Wow.
someday.
Yeah, from Jaffna Peninsula to the down south, the tip of India.
Actually, they
Must have
found
been.
archaeologists have found remnants. So they say that Thomas, the Apostle Thomas, came down to Chennai,
Yep.
India. They have found relics that suggest that he also came to Sri Lanka.
Actually, that's really funny because that was one of the things I thought that I wanted to talk to you about later in the podcast, but we'll just do it now because it makes sense. So, background for us in terms of who are watching here. Easter message this year, so just a few weeks ago, we really focused on Jesus' encounter with Thomas on the night of the resurrection. And then in our podcast, our Northpointe Plus podcast, we talked about some of the where people believe that Thomas went. So for Sri Lankan Christians, there is this sense that the impact, the ministry of Thomas came down into Sri Lanka.
Oh, yeah, I mean, definitely. Most definitely he must have come at least few times, I think. Although historians in Sri Lanka, bias in their religion, so they don't want any of those things to come up. So I'm sure he must have come. Because if he could come all the way from Israel to India, why not just cross that little bridge to come to
Especially
Sri
if
Lanka?
you could have gone by foot and back in those days.
Yeah, absolutely. And when we talked about it, like when I did the just doing background study, it's assumed that Thomas landed in Chennai, which is on the
down south.
That's on the southeast or the
East, yep,
southeast.
Yeah.
But the I'm trying to think the name of the place on the
Thomas Mount?
No,
That's where he was
on the
buried.
southwest side, which is Oh, it'll come to me in a little bit. But in terms of where he went, he would have gone from the southwest down probably through the bottom, which would have taken him
To
down.
Mana. Is that the place?
Yeah.
Mana.
It'll come to me.
Yeah.
But he would have probably come down through the south tip of India to get over to Chennai, which is where ultimately he was martyred, history tells us.
Yeah. We actually been to his
burial site. when
His
we were
burial
in
site,
India.
Chennai.
It's called Thomas Mount in Chennai.
Thomas Mount.
Yeah.
That's cool.
And the cool thing is we actually had never heard about the relics that have been found in Sri Lanka, but we were talking, there's a very small community of scholars in Sri Lanka who are like very well educated and doing actions towards Christianity. Like they're making a new translation of the Bible into Sinhala at the moment that's directly from Greek, because the current translation of the Bible in Sinhala comes from, I believe, it comes from a Korean translation of the Bible.
Really?
Yeah, so they're trying to get a more direct and more proper one. So in conversation with these scholars is when I heard about these relics, because the government wants to like hide that as much as possible.
Downplay it,
Yeah, because I mean it's a Buddhist country, and so to see that Christianity has deep roots as well would,
It's threatening.
yeah.
Yeah, that's very cool. And we talked just a little bit ago because I didn't say the name right. And there is a cross, the archaeological cross from the 6th century called the Anuradhapura or
Anuradhapura.
Anuradhapura.
That's an ancient city. It's in
Anuradhapura.
northern part of
In the
Sri
northern
Lanka.
part. And actually, when I was looking at our very first communication, like when you guys first went to Sri Lanka, that was an area where you thought you might work, right?
Yeah.
We
We
still
still
think-
hope
yeah.
someday.
Yeah.
Not today, but someday we hope to go over there
Yeah.
too.
There are a few connections that we're looking into work with.
That's really cool. So we talked a little bit on Sunday about geography and that kind of thing, and I went and looked to just confirm. Sri Lanka is about 2/3 of the size of the mitten of Michigan.
Yeah.
65,000 square kilometers,
Square kilometers.
and the mitten is like 104,000 square kilometers. So roughly 2/3, a little bit more than half, somewhere in there. And in Michigan, there's about in the mitten, there's about 9 million people, and there's 22 million people in Sri Lanka. That I think is significant to just help for we illiterate about world geography Americans. We just don't have any sense, and so I didn't have any idea of how populous Sri Lanka is.
I mean, it's like if you go to Colombo only, it's about 8
capital
million
city.
people live there, 8 million. But you can go to rural villages like in Anuradhapura and things, miles and miles, just the plain paddy fields.
Paddy field.
Yeah.
So most of the people tend to congregate in the
But,
bigger
but
cities.
still,
Yeah.
every land matters. Every square foot matters in Sri Lanka, and they try to make the most of it because it's an island and there's just only so much space. So,
Yeah. You guys work primarily in Kandy.
Based from,
that's the base of where your work is. That's Americans, Kandy with a K.
It's a sweet place.
It is a sweet place. And Kandy is in the mountains in the center of the country, center-ish.
Yeah, it's called Up Country. There is another city called Nuwara that is the most elevated city in Sri Lanka. Another about 2.5, 3 hours into the mountains, up the top of the mountain.
And when we were there, we got to go to both places, which was a cool thing. Well, we spent most of our time in Kandy, but then went to Nuwara. Am I saying that right?
Yeah, Nuwara.
Nuwara, which
Tea.
is where we saw tea plantations.
Yes.
There's a lot of tea that comes from that part of the country.
Yeah, a lot of hills covered with tea plantations. So.
So in the work that you guys do, that's primarily focused right now in Kandy with the churches that are there, can you talk about what that looks like? How many evangelical churches are in Kandy, and how big is Kandy?
Kandy is about, I would say, about 700,000 people within city and the around area. I
So that's
would.
roughly 5 times the size of Lansing,
Oh, is it?
roughly.
Okay.
Yeah.
So not just the city, but
Yeah.
surrounding,
Yeah,
within
the
maybe
surrounding
like 6,
area.
7, 8 kilometers that way.
Yep.
I would say about maybe, I don't know, 50 churches, evangelical churches.
Evangelical church. So
spread
churches that
out.
believe that Jesus, that the way to have a relationship with God is through Jesus. That's,
Yes.
believe the Bible.
Yeah,
Yeah.
less than 50, I would say.
Yeah.
Those churches are very small churches.
And most
did-
of them are
50.
small.
Yeah, you said that there's. It seems like I remember that there was one larger church. Is that true? Evangelical church in Candy.
Yeah, they're called Lighthouse Church. I would say that's one of the main ones, and they've got a couple branches as well. And even the main one itself has like a Sinhala service, a Tamil, and an English service. So I suppose that would probably be the main. And
Yeah.
then
Then there's AOG Church. It's,
AOG is
Pretty big.
Assembly of God.
uh-huh.
Yeah.
I would say about, I don't know, 150, 200 people.
yeah, and so when we talk large, typically that's like
Yeah.
It's not
talking
mega
maybe
churches.
1 to 200
Right.
people.
And so the churches that you guys are working with community health evangelism, with Che, and with the DBS, the Discovery Bible Studies,
Yes.
they are how large?
The churches that we are involved with, I would say, I mean, Vijit's church now run about 80 to 100, so it's growing. It's a new church too. They started about
2
2.5 years ago. Yeah.
Yeah, and again, let me just say that because it's so that your ears get accustomed. The pastor's name there is Vijit,
The pastor, yeah, the
Vijit.
guy who
Vijit.
Vijit.
Vijit, and that's a church that I got to go to. There you are.
Yeah, you did
that
preach
I-
over there,
That I
right?
got to
Yeah.
preach at, and Northpointe was able to give a gift. They had just moved into a new
Yes.
area and
New building too.
a new building,
Uh-huh.
and we were able to help provide fans again,
Yes,
hot
you did.
country,
Uh-huh.
and help build a stage.
Yeah,
which
the
was
pulpit and the stage. Yeah, that was
Yeah.
really cool. And
Yeah, it's fun even now to see the pictures
Uh-huh.
And see how that's being used for the nights of worship and
Oh, yeah.
that kind of thing.
oh yeah.
So
Yeah.
that church is a church of 80 to 100
Mm-hmm.
somewhere in there.
Yeah.
So most our church would be around like 50 to 100. You know,
Uh-huh.
it's not so big churches, but they're growing.
Yeah,
you know.
and they're at the moment they're both using the DBS Discovery Bible Study as their Bible study / outreach initiative.
Method,
So
yeah.
like now both of these churches are using it as so their leaders are going out to their communities and they've already like set up, okay, we're going to be in these communities so that they can make sure, and they've got it in all of the regions of all of their church members.
Yeah.
Where they're reaching.
Yeah, where
Yeah.
they're reaching. And so now that's one of the reasons why we've grown how many DBSs that we're doing from 9 when you guys
Yeah.
came to about 22 now is because we've challenged them like, okay, you guys have this many, but it should be growing. It shouldn't settle. It should never
Right.
just be settled. And so we've challenged them, and they have taken up the challenge and then some, and they've got
Yeah.
it in all of the communities. And there's usually anywhere from 5 to 12 people in each of those.
Yeah, and the cool thing about the Discovery Bible series again is that you don't have to have theological training. You basically just have to have friends
Yeah.
and to be able to ask 3 questions.
Yeah, definitely. Not necessarily a formal education, but some Bible background, of course. So they would just, meet with their friends, whether in cricket club or where you work, just hang out, your subculture, the people that you're close with, and start a conversation
Yeah.
type of deal. It's just really a bunch of people coming together and then share a portion of scripture. And then you go, like, what do you see about God in this? What do you see about people, about us? And what can we apply from this truth? And then if there's any truth in this, how can I take this to my community and influence some people in better ways?
So how do the new groups start? Is it that a person will say, okay, yeah, I want to do this with my friends, and they just invite their friends to come? Is that
Yeah, so usually what it is like we have our
Church
leaders.
initiated, and
and
community.
community-led. So,
Yeah.
so for example, right now in Pioneer Church, they just recently started a new one with the community that they've been reaching out to, this slum area down at the bottom of the hill. And it's got 4 Hindus and 2 Buddhists who are attending it along with their families. And so that there's one girl named Madhu who's from that community. And
guys met her.
Yeah, I remember her.
Yeah, and so she's Nadira, one of the ministers at the church. She's Chabi, the main minister's wife, and she's also doing active full-time ministry now. And actually, she's, I think, officially now the head of all the DBSs.
DBS.
That's great. She was
Yeah.
terrific.
She's
She's the
Terrific.
DBS
Great fit
coordinator
for
for
her.
us. Yeah, she's doing
And so
that.
she's walking alongside Madhu, who is leading it in that community.
And Nadu is Nadu.
Madhu.
Madhu.
Madhu is how old?
She must be 20 or
19.
Is she really that? Okay.
19.
19
20,
something.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but she's been with them for about 2 years, and also she
Yeah.
started when she was like 16, 17. And so it's really just like the community of friends. Like, you know, you have all these subcultures already existing.
Yeah.
Everybody does. You know, I've got my foreign ladies group in Sri Lanka.
Yeah.
I've got my pioneer friend group. I've got my Lanka Bible College friend group. You know,
Yeah.
like we've got these circles of friends that we automatically have. So it's just takes you to initiate like, hey, let's just like get together, you know, and have a discussion kind of thing. I got these really cool stories that I'd love to, you know, if they're non-believers, you could
Right.
even just,
Yeah.
you know, frame it like that. I would love to just get together with you guys. I've got these really cool stories, and we could just have discussions about them, you know, and we'll have some coffee or tea or you know, whatever, work out after, practice Sinhala together
Yeah.
after, something like
Yeah,
that.
you take a parable from the Bible and you just have a discussion, you know.
Yeah.
So it's really simple and organic.
And so that's happening with Madhu. That's happening with. Tell me again what the breakdown. The Buddhists and Hindus. Yeah.
There's 4 Hindus and 2 Buddhists. They just sent
Ladies,
us a
yeah.
picture recently, and it's
Really?
like they
Yeah.
built a house. There's more than
And
just
there's
those.
some kids also joining them. And I mean, you know, especially when you do it I'm not saying that if you do it with the Christian brothers and sisters, miracles would not happen. I'm not saying that. But especially on that kind of places, when you do ministry, you know, you go and you pray together. And if somebody asks for a special prayer request, God is always going to show up.
Yeah.
You know, because I believe miracles happen for 2 reasons. First one is just to say like, this is my guy or gal.
Yep. To
in this
validate.
case.
Yeah.
And to show that my God is the God above
Right.
every other God.
Show His
So
power.
always some great stories, great miracles comes out of those things.
So those people who are part of that study, are they like Madhu's age, or are they lots older?
More like stay-at-home moms. No, it's like
Okay.
Typically,
about middle-aged.
So 5 or 10
Ladies,
years older,
yeah.
kind of thing. Young moms.
Yeah, some of them about maybe around 50.
Yeah, I think a lot of them are parents of other kids who have been
Got it.
sending their kids to the learning center. So just a background with that, the Pioneer Church, they've been reaching out to this community and having a learning center where they're teaching these kids like tutoring in school lessons as well as outside of school lessons, like learning instruments and multimedia and all of this kind of stuff. And so the kids, their lives have been really transforming and improving. And so I think the parents want a taste of that now.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
that's why the church waited. They said like they could have initiated and like, hey, let's do a Bible study in your community. But they wanted to wait, and they wanted them to ask for it.
Yeah.
And so they recently came to the point where they asked for them to come and do this. Bible
That's what I call community transformation.
Yeah.
When the people from unreached area getting to know Christ, and one of them now leading the others in the community
Yeah.
to know about God and discover the Bible.
And it really is a Samaritan woman. It's the woman who says,
Yeah.
"Come meet this guy who told me everything I ever
Yes.
did." That really is what it is. So that's just so cool. we've talked about this before, but it may have been a while when we were there and we experienced that with the church. The church is meeting in the pastor's home, and there's this community down. It's probably not a quarter of a mile down the hill, right?
Yeah, less than.
That's a slum in the middle of beautiful mountains where there are big, rich houses.
Yeah.
And the church has basically just said that we want that to be our community. And the kids from there are coming, and when they come on Saturdays, right? They come on Saturdays. They have a chance to work with computers. They have a chance to learn. They have a chance. There's an art teacher that teaches them about art.
Music teacher.
Lots of music. How to run sound. Violin. I remember seeing drums, keys. Just a wide variety of stuff that gives the kids a chance to learn and grow in a fun in a way that's cool. And it's all in the context of Jesus' love without it being preachy.
I mean, ministry is not just only coming through preaching with people, teaching.
Right.
It's also, all the areas of life. That's what we try to encourage our pastors. Think ministry holistically,
Yep.
And because Jesus himself not only preached, he fed people, he healed people.
Yeah.
Yeah, so.
Do you guys in Sri Lanka, are you able to see the Chosen series?
She started it, and I was kind of following it, but sometimes I get busy.
I've been trying to encourage Laminda, not that we have a lot of free time anyway, but there's even the option of taking part in like doing the translations, the subtitles. And I was trying to encourage Laminda because at that time, some time ago, there was nothing. But even recently I checked, and so I think like it goes through a system. Like you have one person who writes it, and then it's another person who has to go over it. And I think the people who go over it, there's 2 or 3 levels of that. And so they've already actually gotten somebody who's done one, and they're at the stage 2 now.
Yeah, the reason I say that, I'm not promoting The Chosen, although it shows a great picture of Jesus doing life.
Yeah,
he really is. His interaction with the kids, his interaction in the community, his whole demeanor is just. It's a different picture oftentimes than people have of, there's Jesus in the Bible that's walks around in robes.
And especially in my cultural context, when you think about God, it's someone way up there somewhere there just distant, looking down on us. We just need to do things to please him, whether it's, sacrifice of fruits or flowers or whatever. But when you really get to know about Jesus Christ, it's not about the religion, it's about the relationship with him.
Yeah.
So it's a total different experience.
And I think evangelism and outreach has kind of been forgotten or has slowly changed over the years, so much so that like even in a place like Sri Lanka where the amount of Christians you could like, we literally know almost every Christian in town, like it's that small of a population. They just focus on each other. So like if a church, for example, Vijit was going through a situation in his new community that he reached out to, the one that you guys went to the school, that he's got a great relationship with the principal. This is a government school, and they've invited him in twice where he shared the gospel in different programs.
Wow.
And the community loves him, and the children love, what's going on. But there's one church in the entire village. It's on the other side of the village. It's not like a tiny village. It's not like a small neighborhood. It's a village. There's one church there, and they're jealous, and they're mad, and they're like, it's like he's trying to steal their territory. And Vijit is like, hey, dude, you keep your Christians. I don't want any of them. I'm going for the non-believers.
Yeah.
And so there shouldn't be any competition about it. And we should be working together for these things. And so I think people are just so set, though, that if you're reaching a new community, it means finding the Christians that already exist and taking them. And that's what they interpret it as, rather than thinking there is a plethora of souls here that need the hope of Jesus. We don't, the Christians, we'll leave them behind. Leave the 99 behind for that one person.
Yeah. And that's not isolated to Sri Lanka. In the U.S., it gets very easy for us to surround ourselves with other Christians, and to neglect relationships with people who don't know Jesus, and that's what we're called to do.
Exactly.
Yeah. Let me just look. So Vijith is from a Reformed church. We talked a little bit about this in the interview process yesterday, just in terms of the kind of cross-denominational partnerships that you guys have. Vijith is from a Reformed church, not because that's his fundamental theology, but that's kind of who he connected with to help plant the church.
He grew up free church,
church.
But then when he was in Bible school, when he came out as a pastor, he wanted to go out and do more church planting. So he needed a kind of a legal umbrella type of steady church background. So that's why he kind of joined with them.
And then in Asia and some in Europe, there's another kind of non-denominational denomination called Pioneer Church.
Yeah.
And Chabi is a part of the Pioneer Church, which is cool. God's using them to do great stuff. And then another pastor that we met that we haven't talked about a lot, Yogi. Is in the Aurelia area. And what's his background theologically?
He's also his senior pastor was part of Smyrna Church.
Smyrna?
Yeah, that's kind of a well-known church there. Got a few different branch churches and things. He grew up there, his senior pastor, but he came out and started a few different other churches.
Yeah.
So now it's kind of a free church again with Yogi.
And when we were there, I don't know if there's more that you can share about what's going on there. When we were there, we did just some preliminary work in the community to just kind of the thing I remember about being up there was we played cricket in the rain.
And you did share on an open air. Remember that?
Yeah.
Preaching gospel. Yeah, that was pretty cool.
People came no matter what the weather.
Even though it was raining, people were standing up, and they even asked us to pray for them.
We were able to tell a Bible story and do some singing. Well, what's going on there?
Yogi, it's really cool actually. We've had a relationship with Yogi for a long time, and Laminda even farther back when Yogi remembers me also. I'm starting to feel, I don't feel like I'm that old, but when all these people are coming to me and saying, I remember you when I was 10 years old at 14, I'm like, how old? I guess that's what it feels like to get old.
Yeah. So tell
me about it. Tell me about it.
So, but Yogi, he is he's such an innocent soul and like really, really dedicated to the Lord. Actually, just a short side note, we were having this business training once, and we invited a couple of non-believers and also unbelievers, and Yogi, who does farming, he came to it as well, and we gave all of them a chance to kind of present what their businesses were. And one friend of mine who is a Buddhist girl came to it. She just broke down in tears when he was presenting, and she was like, I don't even know, I just feel like such a sweet calmness about this guy that it just brought me to tears.
Wow, Holy Spirit.
And so he carries that kind of spirit with him. And so we've always really saw that there's a lot of potential with him. And so recently, just before we came here to America, we did another Che training. Mainly the goal for that was Vijit's leaders had not been trained yet, and so if Vijit wants them to all be in the same mindset of him as what the church's mission is, they need to know. So, but we also invited Yogi for it because we knew we were coming here and it would be some time before we could make it. And he started how many DBSs now?
I don't know, 3 or 4.
3 or 4 in there, and he just learned. There was so many things that he learned, and like he was saying after the Che training, if I had known this stuff, X number of months or years ago, there's so many things I would have done differently. And so at this point, we haven't really, it's still unofficial, but at this point we kind of see him as our possible next leader for that region.
Wow.
Che leader.
Most definitely.
Which is, let's just talk about Che for a little bit. So community health evangelism, and really kind of the fundamental question is, starting with what is it the community needs,
Yeah.
and everything kind of stems from that. I think that there's great application for us here at Northpointe in that there's lots of times that the church says, "Oh, here's what we're doing for you.
Yeah.
We know what you need. This is it." Rather than, and I mean, sometimes we even do that with our friends or people at work. We say, "Oh, this is what you need to hear," as opposed to asking questions to say, "What is it that you're thinking about? What are you struggling with about this?"
Well, when we were here serving in one of the churches in Cincinnati, we had a situation. I mean, not a situation, really great learning experience. Do you want to share about that?
We use this as an example, even though it was actually here in America. We use this kind of as an example of why of how that works and why that problem that we face. So there was a church that we were working with, and they were opening this new resource center kind of building. And as the grand opening for it, they wanted to make this big event. And so the person who was leading it, they had a previous church that they'd done this clothing drive, and it was a huge success in that church that person was recently in.
Previous church.
So they thought, well, that's going to be what will be a big thing here because it was a big thing there. So, the church was extremely, amazingly generous, as they always are. There were mountains of clothes. They were expecting, hundreds of people to come for this big successful event. And on the day,
The target, you should tell the audiences for
oh, sorry, yeah. The church that was doing this, their goal was they had a trailer park
Right
just
next to
next
the church.
door to the church. And so one of their big community in mind that they wanted to reach was this trailer park. And so they thought, this resource center, clothing drive, they must need this.
Yeah,
And
they thought that people would need the clothing. That was their preconceived idea.
And so they had this program. It was a huge flop. I think less than 100 people showed up and everything. And they had so much extra clothes. They donated it to, a different ministry and stuff. And they were just kind of confused and left. And then at some point along the line, somehow they found out, or they heard, or maybe they started finally listening to the community. What did they need? And what they
What is
needed
their
was
actual need.
what is their actual felt needs is what we call it.
Yeah.
And so the problem was that the trailer park was right next door, but they had to go all the way down to the main road, which is a pretty busy
About a
road,
mile or
and
two.
then walk down and then all the way back up to the church. And sometimes the kids, who they want to play and stuff, that was too far. So the metaphorical bridge ended up simply being a physical bridge.
Physical bridge, yeah.
And so they built like a small little bridge pathway over the creek that was separating the church
Wow,
from there.
that's good.
Yeah.
And
That's good.
so-
I took the staff went together to a church in Brighton some months ago. That a bunch of years ago they had bought a sports complex, and that became their new facility. And I love this. They before they did anything inside the facility, when the church took over it, they put a sign out that said "What's next?" and then a phone number or a email address, something like that. And so that's all that there was. So people could call and say, "This is what I hope's there. This is what I hope's there." And that's the feedback that they got from the community was what they used to drive how they developed the building, along with it being used as a church.
That's amazing.
Yeah, that's the same reason that we encourage our community leaders when they go to a new community, go and talk to the elders, the people who are hanging out in a marketplace or in front of a shop.
That group of old guys who were hanging out at McDonald's.
Exactly. They know ins and out and every single thing in that community.
And the reason why that makes an impact and why it makes a difference is because what you feel is the need is what you're passionate about. And so if you come in, the needs that you see may be legitimate needs, but if they're not ready to receive those, then you're just speaking to a wall. So like, let's say you go
Then
into a
it
community.
becomes your program.
Yeah. So let's say you go into a community and you can obviously see that there is a problem with measles outbreak.
Yeah.
But they don't really notice that because their felt need is,
I don't know, malnourishment.
Malnourishment. Their
Yeah.
kids are all, not getting enough food. Okay, so you work with them with their pace. So you go, okay, well let's work on this malnourishment. Okay, and while we're working with you and building relationship with you and building trust, if we addressed this, this measles,
Yep.
your lives could improve in this way. And because they have the relationship with you, I never thought about that.
Yeah.
Actually, that's true. And then it becomes a felt need.
Yeah.
Yeah, and most of the time, like doing awareness programs for like general hygienes and things.
Yeah.
It's could be a very simple seed project, love in action type of thing.
Yeah.
Just do that and get people know that you're there to help with their own issues.
Yeah, when we were there last fall, one of the first days that we were there, maybe the first day, you guys did a training with leaders, and there were about, if I remember right, there were about 20 leaders.
Yeah.
That were there.
Those
Is that,
past-
is,
yeah.
Is that the core? Is that one of the circles of people that you're working with?
Yeah, those are the pastors who have done Che.
Okay.
So they are from different cities in the surrounding area,
Yeah.
Kandy district. So we bring them like every 3 months or so to do like, check on their ministry, how their follow-up is going on, because we don't want to teach these strategies to these pastors and they become another trainers, go and train people in these strategies and leave. We want to do follow-up with them to see really what's really taking place and does actually really community transformation happen.
Yeah. Whether it's working or
So
not?
that was like a meeting when we got all those
But
pastors.
we do
together.
have several people that I would say are not necessarily like our team members, like Chubby's group and Vijit's group are, I'd say, our main groups. And those guys alone equal out to maybe 20 to 30, just them alone.
That's volunteers.
Those pastors
something,
as well as their leadership teams. But then we have a handful of other pastors, and not even just pastors. Like there's one guy who does his own ministry. He's his own organization. He's married to a foreigner from Europe and things like that. And he's doing his own thing. We have things that we disagree on, but we also find ways to collaborate and things. Sometimes he's got some people, his ministry is more focused on connecting pastors who may not have connections to resources and connecting them to resources that he's aware of.
Also
or that he might
providing
have.
direct resources to people if
Direct
they need.
resources.
Yeah.
And so sometimes he's like, hey, I have these people who could really use something that you guys are doing. And so, we work together in that way.
We had a conversation with the elders, and I was just thinking about this. This is, I think, helpful for people to, again, just contextualize stuff. Average household income in Sri Lanka is how much?
About 30 to 40,000 rupees. That would be about what,
$100,
200, 150, 200.
$150 a month.
A month.
About 200,
A month, yeah. So somewhere between 15,000, 18,000, something like that a year.
Yeah.
So it's not a particularly rich country.
No. And especially recently, the prices really globally have gone up.
Right.
So if you can imagine in Sri Lanka, they've at least doubled or sometimes even tripled, but the salaries are still.
Still where they were.
Yeah.
And I would imagine that it probably, that in Colombo and Kandy, income may be a little bit higher because you're in a city.
Yeah, depending on what you do, like
Right,
if
what
you
your job is.
have a better position in a
and
job or something.
Almost all of the church leaders are
Self-supported.
either self-supported, bivocational. They're tent makers like Paul. They've got a job that are working in
Uber driving, whatever
Yeah.
they could do.
which is cool. What are some of the biggest obstacles for you guys in ministry?
You wanna go first?
There's a lot of obstacles. I think the challenge of bringing in team members, we want to bring in more local team members as well as international team members. So finding the right like-minded people who have the same vision with us and things. And actually finding international team members is quite difficult, more than I suppose we expected. It's not easy to give up everything and go to the other side of the world to do ministry. But then on the other hand, sometimes I think maybe God, are you doing this because you know we can't handle also because we got so much ministry going on, because also it would take quite a lot of transition for them to help them to find their place in Sri Lanka and doing ministry.
I would say getting people to understand about the holistic ministry aspect, because I think it's important for us to take care of people's spiritual well-being.
Yeah.
Also, it's equally important to take care of their physical well-being. So with CHE and DBS and whatever the Village Savings and Loans that we're going to introduce a new program.
Like micro business.
Micro business type of thing. So all these things to help people in both sides, you know.
Yeah. I want to say just, I just feel like I need to say this. If as you're listening, as you've met Laminda and Denise, you have a sense that God might be doing something in you, pay attention to that. Herb and Kim Burkett that are serving in Ukraine, been serving there for 25 years. It was just, they were sitting around being a part of Northpointe. They were serving, but not, they didn't have special training. Herb worked for the state of Michigan and had a sense that God was calling them to leave and to go someplace. And so if that's going on for you, don't just rationalize that away. God may be doing something in that, and that's really cool. How long are you guys here? How long are you here in the U.S. this trip?
We're here until June 19th is when we head back out.
June
About 2 more
19th, so
months.
about 3 months total. And then how long will it be before you come back?
Probably 2026 is when we'll be coming back again.
And how long will it be before we take another group from Northpointe to come visit?
Sometime this year.
This year?
Not going to happen this year. Not this year for sure.
Let's see. We arrived in June.
That'd be a little much for you guys.
So
Hey, we had a blast with you guys. I was actually going to share when I was preaching the other day. One thing that Larry Carter said at the end of you guys' trip, he came to us and came to me and said, like, hey guys, I really appreciate the way you getting all these people from different backgrounds and all these leaders and putting them together and working in collaboration, which is awesome. And I can't almost say who is leading who,
right?
Which is exactly what we are trying to do with our people there. So empowering each other, standing on each other's shoulders and working with.
maybe next time that you guys come, we might have a coffee shop pub place. So.
Nice. What we don't have time to talk about that today, but that would
Just
be cool.
A new level.
There is, I feel like there's never enough time to tell the story of how God works. But there's some really cool things in the backstory in terms of how God connected us in ways that don't make any sense, except that it be in God in retrospect. Like when you called initially, and I'm trying to make out this Sri Lankan accent talking on the telephone, the person that you said that was the connector point that actually created our first face-to-face meeting is a really good friend of mine. But then when I talked to him afterwards and said, yeah, there's this guy named Ubhayawanshas, and my friend said, who's that? He didn't have any clue who you were, but that was a connecting point that actually allowed us, because I think you knew somebody who knew him.
Yeah.
So that's cool, and I think that it's really it's a God thing that your ministry that reaches into multiple places in the theological world, if you say that, different kind of cross-denominational stuff, that's a part of who we are as a church. That we, it's all about following Jesus. And so we're grateful. We're grateful you guys are here. Thanks for coming. Thanks for doing the podcast.
Yeah, thank you so much for taking care of us and your wonderful parsonage out there. We are enjoying it. And so thank you for praying for us. working with us.
Northpointe is such a blessing. When we were doing fundraising right after we finished school, our prayer was not that we just got supporters that would
Right,
have lots of money to give us lots of money, which that is
That would have
always
been
helpful.
nice.
Sometimes we're like, God, can you just give us a rich person who's supposed to throw all their money at us? But seriously, what we wanted was partnership. People who really wanted to walk with us in the journey of what God is doing in Sri Lanka. And so we're so thankful that Northpointe is one of those people who is walking with us and
Also
is
being
true,
with us.
genuine partners.
Yeah.
Hey, thanks for being a part of Northpointe Conversations with Laminda and Denise Ubhayawanshas. How's that?
That's
There
right.
we go. And until next time, we'll catch you. If you like it, share it. Send us a message, write a note. Thanks.